So the Rav from the Rebbe to learn Hilchos Beis Abchira, the weeks of the Meis Ben HaMetzorim. We have the honor to have a Choshev in German for the Mechalchim in Moiset B'Srivke, Harav HaChosid, Harav Shmuel Shneaor, geht uns vorlernen Haloche, und mit allem ein Eichet legen Zdoke B'Tzibur, ist der Rav der Rebbe, soll geben Zdoke B'Tzibur, aber sein Yov Chaim im Lesosen L'Simcha. Harav Shmuel, b'kasha.
I brought a chance someone could follow, so I don't, basically. It's only 10 papers, I didn't know if you.
Okay.
Okay. Video is very cool. What? Video is working. Hold on. Okay. Ready to start? Yeah. No one ever complains that the speech is too long, right? If we finish early, it's okay, yeah? Like Volansky says. Okay, let's go. So, in Masechtas Midos, if you have the paper, you don't have the paper, fine, I'll try. Just a little, it's a bit technical. It's very simple parts. It's a little bit. Red and Hecher. Oh, louder. Okay. So it's a bit of a technical thing, which is why I made this paper, but it's not it's a very simple thing. And obviously, this Sikha is one of them that Baruch Hashem we learned together. We learned a few weeks ago Kairach Dalid, and we learned this year on the project with Kutasichas. Rabbi Gerari spoke about that it's Asar Sheyash from the Maimer. You should have 10 people learning together. Baruch Hashem, we're still looking for number 10 for our little Chabura. But here we go. So Masechtas Midos Kairach Aleph, Mishnah Aleph says the following: B'shleisha Mekaymes, in 3 places it goes on. We are the Kohanim guard in the Beis Hamikdash. But the point that we wanted to bring out is that it says the Leviim guard the Esrim ve'echad makim in 21 places, and it says in the Mishnah Chamisha 5 of the 21 places, Al Chamisha Sharei Harabayis 5 on the 5 Harabayis. Now, if someone spoke about this last time, please don't tell me, and whatever, you'll tell me after. So anyhow, so it says in Mishnah Aleph that 5 Leviim stand Al Chamisha Sharei Harabayis on the 5 entrance, the Sha'arim, the 5 gates, the Harabayas. Then you go on Mishnah Beis and you learn about the person that went around the Harabayas, the Sikha tonight, all about that. So we're not going to talk about it because the Sikha spoke about it. And then we come to Mishnah Dalet. And Mishnah Dalet says, Shiva Sha'arim Hayu Ba'azara, that there were 7 entrance ways or gates to the Azara. So what's going on here? Was there a very simple question? Is there 5 gates or is there 7 gates? How many gates are there? It's a very, very simple question. You learn Mishnah Aleph, you learn Mishnah Dalet, and you come up with this question: was there 5 gates or 7 gates? So Baruch Hashem, we have Gemara Tamid, Daf Chav Zayin Amud Aleph, and there the Gemara asks this question: Amar Mar, Hey al Hey Shari Azara, Hey Shari Mudav Azara, that there were, meaning to say there were 5 Sha'arim by the Azara. V'Remina, we have a question: Zayin Sharim Hayav Azara, that there were 7 Gimel B'Darim, and it's in the other Mishnah it says there were 7. And the Gemara gives 2 answers. Gives 2 answers to this question. So again, the question is, in one Mishnah it says 5, in one Mishnah it says 7, and the Gemara gives 2 answers in Gemara Tamid Al Chazayin Amid Aleph, and the first answer is from Amar Abaye. So what does Abaye say? Abaye says, Trei minayu light shricha shimur. There's no problem. There were 7 gates. The first Mishnah that says that that the Leviim were guarding 5 of the gates, it's because 2 out of the 7 gates didn't need to be guarded. So there's no argument. There's Mishnah Aleph, Mishnah Daled, and in short, what Abaye says is there were 7 gates, and the reason the first Mishnah says Chamisha al Chamisha Share al Chamisha Share al Chamisha on only 5 of them. I actually just realized I made a mistake. I highlighted the words Harabayas. It's supposed to be the next one, Azara. I apologize for those of you who noticed it. It's a mistake. Okay. Anyhow, the bottom line is the same question. That says 5 in one Mishnah and 7 in the next Mishnah. Anyhow, the bottom line is he says there were 7 gates and 2 of them didn't need to be guarded. Good so far? Okay. Good. That's Abaye. Good. Comes Rava. Rava says no. Tanai. It's a machlekes Tanaim. There's 2 Mishnahs. One says 5 gates. One says 7 gates. It's a machlekes Tanaim. Tanai. It's an argument between the Tanaim. Tanya, and then he brings down, there's another Mishnah that says there was Yud Gimel, there was 13 gates, and he says there's many opinions. So, it's not very complicated, but just to summarize again, one Mishnah says 5, one Mishnah says 7, one answer says 7 gates, only 5 were guarded. No argument between the 2 Mishnahs. The second opinion says, no, there's an argument. One Mishnah, it's 2 Tanaim. One person says 5 gates, one person says 7 gates. Beautiful. Now we come to the Rambam. The Rambam in Hilchos Beis Abchira, Perek Hei Halacha Daled, goes like this. Lifnim and Heichal HaZara, and then he goes, Azara was Eirech Kokei Zayin, what? Tanaim, what are the 2 Tanaim? It doesn't say anything more. It's a good question. I don't know. But it's a very good question. I don't know. It's a good question. Okay, we'll have to look into it. So, the Rambam says, Shiva Sha'arim Hayula, that there were 7 gates. Shleisham and Hatzafen, and Shleisham and Hadarim, the Echad and Mizrach. So the Rambam starts off that there were 7 gates. Now, if you think about it, so there's 7 gates. Then the Rambam continues in Halacha Perek Ches, not continues, but skip a few prakim, Perek Ches, Halacha Ches, and then he goes, Heichon Haya Leviim Shaimrim, where were the Leviim guarding? Al Chamisha Shari Harabayis, V'Arbinis Hazara, Ibachutz, Al Chamisha Shari Hazara. He says, where were they guarding? On the 5 Shari Hazara. So the Rambam says there were 7 gates, but where were the Leviim guarding? Only on 5 of them. So if you think about it, whose opinion does this go according to? This is the opinion of Abaye. Abaye says there's no machlokes between the two Mishnahs. There's no argument at all. There were 7 gates, but the Leviim only guarded 5. So l'chaira, when you learn this Rambam very simply, it seems that the Rambam is going according to the opinion of Abaye. Because again, Rabba's opinion is that it's machlokes. So the Rambam would either say the Leviim were guarding on 5 because there were 5 gates, or he'd say they were guarding on 7 because there were 7 gates. Abaye is the one who says there's 7 gates, but only 5 of them were guarded. So l'chaira, the Rambam is going like Abaye. Now, seemingly that's not a problem. But anyone who learns Gemara knows that if you have a machlekes between Abaye and Rava, who do we follow? We follow the opinion of Rava, besides for 6 places, Yal Kigam, and this is not one of the 6 places. So the question is, how could the Rambam paskin like, why does the Rambam, not how, but why does the Rambam paskin like Abaye, which says that there's no argument? And why doesn't he go like Rava, who the halacha generally follows? Okay, so the Rebbe, and if you look in the Rambam, I brought in number 7, which we're not going to go into just because of time-wise. We're not going to go into number 10, so we'll only spend time on the question without the answer. But if you look, you see that in number 7, the Rambam is very clear that he goes with both opinions. He starts off like this, then goes like that, and it's a little bit interesting. So the Rebbe comes with an answer, and the Rebbe says, if you look at Mishnah number 2, Mishnah Dalet, Shiva Sha'arim Hayu Ba'azara. So the question that we ask always in Gemara Mishnah is Minyana Lamali. Why do we need to say a number? If the Mishnah clearly says how many, the Mishnah clearly says this gate, that gate, that gate, that gate, count to yourself. The Mishnah is very exact, everything's very precise. So why would the Mishnah say Shiva Sha'arim Hayu Azara if it actually goes on to enumerate exactly what the gates were? And the Rebbe comes with a very, 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 very simple and easy answer. And the Rebbe says there's obviously no argument how many places in the Azara looked like gates. When generally we don't have a machlekes in Metzias. And if you look at Mishnayos Midas number 8, Perek Beis Mishnah Vav, you see there's Abba Yossi ben Chanan Eimer Kneged Shleisha Eser Sharim. He says there was 13 gates. So the Rebbe says no one's arguing how many gates there were. And he actually enumerates exactly the gates. You follow, there's numbers there, how many gates, which one, there's gates. So there's no argument how many gates there were. The argument only is how many of those entrance ways that looked like gates had the din of a gate. That means it could look like a gate, but even if it looks like a gate, maybe it doesn't have the halachic validity of being a gate. Now what does it mean, the halachic validity of being a gate? So the Rebbe gives a few different nafkaminas, what we could differentiate if it's a gate or not. So the Rebbe says one thing, first of all, the famous thing that we talk about, where do you need a guard? Which entranceway, which shar needed a guard watching it for all the different reasons, as all the shiurim spoke about, the different reasons why you have guards by the Azaras, by the Zmigas, the Cannon. So first of all, which gates needed to be guarded? So we talk about, everyone agrees there's 13 gates. The Tana in Mishnah Aleph says 5 needed to be guarded. The Tana in Mishnah Dalet says that 7 of them needed to be guarded. So it's not it's not no one's disagreeing how many gates there were. The only question is, what is a din of a gate? Which one is a din of a gate? And the nafkamina again is, doesn't need to be guarded. Another nafkamina could be, it says that if you came into the Beis Hamikdash in your tummy and you came in through the roof, you may not be chayev because it says the pasuk says derech bia la yavai, so it has to be derech bia. If you don't come derech bia, so if you didn't come through a gate, you're not chayev, whatever the punishment would be for coming into the Beis Hamikdash when you're tummy. And the third one, which is very interesting, the Rebbe says that we could possibly be done and discuss what if it needed a mezuzah. If it has a din of gate, it needs a mezuzah. If it doesn't have a din of gate, it does need a mezuzah. But then the Rebbe says that we actually learned that only a place that's chayil needs a mezuzah, a place that's kodesh doesn't need a mezuzah. And in the footnote, the Rebbe says, but why am I even mentioning this? Because in these days, the Rebbe was talking about mitzvah mezuzah, and was kaching in it, so he wanted to bring it in, even though it's not in the Gale of Hoyle, because the Beis Hamikdash didn't need a mezuzah, but the Rebbe brings it as an afkamina, even though it's not even relevant. So the bottom line is, the two Mishnahs basically, in other words, the two Mishnahs, according to Rava, are a disagreement. And the Rambam and the first one says that there's 5 gates. 5 gates need to be guarded. The second one says Shiva Sha'arim Hayu Lav Azara, that there were 7 gates that needed to be guarded, and that's the halacha. However, the Rambam says, and the Rambam, if you look at the halacha again, the Rambam says that only 5 of them were practically guarded by the Leviim. Why? Because 2 of them actually had kaihanim that were standing outside, that were actually inside, and those kaihanim did a dual purpose. They had to be inside, and once they were inside, they also did the gates. So in other words, according to Rava, one opinion says there were 5 gates that needed to be guarded. That's the first one. The second one says there were 7. That's the halacha, that there's 7 gates that needed to be guarded. However, of the 7 gates, practically only 5 were guarded, and that's why the Mishnah says Shiva Sha'arim Hayu Bazar. There were 7 gates. Practically only 5 of the 7 were actually being guarded, and practically only 5 were being guarded. And then the Rebbe goes into a little bit, which we're running out of time, which is why doesn't Rava learn it simple? Why doesn't Rava learn it like Abaya, which is a way which sounds like no argument? Don't we generally have no argument? And that's a very fascinating thing. But we're running out of time. If you want, you can come to me after, and I'd be very happy to explain to you. But I want to end with this, which is Azai. That when I learned this, someone sent me a message in Kairach Dalit and said, all Sikhs of the Rebbe generally have a lesson. In this one, it finishes, no lesson. And I was talking, there are Sikhs that don't have lessons. I'm not saying not. Again, this is my own Adkan Sikha. Now this is me, okay? So if you don't like it, you could argue. So he asked, why is there no Har? Why is there no Hira lesson in Aved Hashem? And I didn't have an answer. And then also we're on this group together. There's this whole group of the people who are doing the project. And they also asked, and nobody really had a good answer. And when I was learning it now, and I was preparing it, so I saw Misichas Shabbos Parshas Dvarim Tav Shin Lamed Vav. And the actual lesson is to learn Hilchos Beis Abchira. There's no lesson because the Rebbe was doing the Hira, learning Hilchos Beis Abchira. That is the lesson, to learn Hilchos Beis Abchira, and that's the whole idea. That's Misichas Shabbos Parshas Dvarim Tav Shin Lamed Vav. The Rebbe was explaining in Indian Hilchos Beis Abchira. That itself is the whole lesson. And Mir Shem, when we learn Hilchos Beis Abchira, we live in a Gula mindset, we become like that, and Mir Shem, we should be Zaycha to the Binyan Beis Hamikdash. Shekaya, for giving me your attention. Thank you so much.
Ohio.